What do you see as the major loss of revenue for construction businesses running residential jobs and smaller commercial jobs?
Well, there's implicit losses and there's also explicit losses. So the most important thing when you walk onto a job site for any builder is safety. And there's an implicit loss there, right? You're basically waiting, you're trying to plan for something bad that can happen. When something bad happens, assuming it would cost something, some sort of money, that's an implicit loss. But that is the most important thing that you need to capture up front. The next thing you would want to capture is things that you see on site that could go wrong but haven't gone wrong yet. Maybe they're not a safety issue. For example, it might be a leak in the roof. If you leave the leak in the roof go on for too long, it's going to cause a lot of damage. So when you see something like that, you need to jump on it and get it fixed ASAP. The other losses that you'll see is when you do change orders, working through a site with customers, they're very quick to ask for a request for a change or can I have a price on this? Can I have a price on that? And what happens is the change orders become an administration headache because the builder then has to then pass that back to his office, who then have to go out to material suppliers and to vendors, and they have to get quotations for that change. That's just for one change. And typically in a walkthrough, you'll have multiple, 3 or 4 or 5 changes, maybe even more with any one customer. And the correct procedure is that you do not work on that change until you get an approved sign-off from the change order, right? In reality, that doesn't happen or rarely happens. It'll happen with the larger builders who are very formal with their processes. But for a smaller builder, when you actually have to pause the job to wait to get that change order processed, you're losing revenue. You're not earning income. You're not hitting your milestones. So you're being able to pay your mortgage then depends on that change being processed. So in reality, what happens, the builder continues to work on that change without an approved change order. It might be something simple where they might be putting in the basics of the change because that's the unit of work they're working on at the time and they don't want to slow it down. But then what happens is if the builder then falls behind on his paperwork, which is very common for smaller builders, they then go to invoice the customer and the customer then sees the change there. And then they'll say, well, I don't remember making that change. That's one thing that can happen. Or you told me it was going to cost this much and now it's costing this much. And the builder may not have even said that it was going to cost a certain amount. A lot of times the customers say, well, how much is that going to cost? Oh, anywhere from $1 to $100,000, right? A very big range. But the customer doesn't hear $100,000. They hear $1. And if something comes in at $10, then the customer says, I'm not paying that. So capturing change orders and processing those as fast as you can is very important. So you could be with Billy, you could capture the change order or the change request as you're doing the walkthrough. It can be filtered through to your back office. Your back office can be working on that change request before your walkthrough is even completed. And if they're very efficient, they may even have a price back to you before the walk is completed, and you can get a signed change order before you've even left the site. So then you avoid all that issue.
Yeah, so one of the things that like I found in my previous experience working with prefab prototypes for builders is that clients would come on the walkthrough and look at these prototypes, and they would then have all these comments on what they would like changed. But then on the spot, you don't know how much that's going to cost or like how much time that's going to take, right? And you don't have a certain answer for them on the spot. So all you can do is just capture it or note it down somewhere or take some photos. And then later on, you would then compile a list of things that they want changed and then go out and ask for pricing or like time that's required. And that takes the most time, right?
Mm.
And then 3 weeks later, you come back with this list and then you ask them for feedback and then they're like on holiday somewhere and they don't get back to you until like another 2 weeks later. And that's when things drag out and things don't get done.
And you raise another point there, walkthrough for potential with inspections. When a builder fails an inspection, everything gets pushed back. You go into an inspection believing you're going to pass, and you have everything scheduled tightly behind that inspection. That's just how projects run. So if you slip on that inspection, there's a ripple effect that goes through the rest of the project. I found myself many times on an inspection where I find 1 or 2 little things that haven't passed, and I beg the inspector, hey, can you come back this afternoon or can you come back tomorrow? I'll have it fixed for you. We've got all these other things riding on it. And usually they're accommodating and they'll drive by at a later time. But you've got to capture the issue, you've got to communicate that to the field or to the other subcontractors or workers who may not be on site. And Billy's perfect for that. You capture the picture, you can either circle it and get that to the workers.
Yeah, so just on the change order, what would be your perfect ideal workflow from beginning to end?
Basically, this would be the ideal scenario. I'm doing a walkthrough with a customer. They point at something, we take some pictures. I maybe even do a little sketch on the wall of how something could be and write some notes. I can take a picture of that as a conceptual design. I can take some notes, put that into Billy. Billy then pipes that back to the back office. The back office sees that in real time. They can respond to that. If we have estimators on staff, they can provide an estimate and even if we have subcontractors, they might be able to contact the subcontractor in real time, get some sort of ballpark price, then get it back to the customer before the walkthrough's even ended. That'd be perfect. And then get their sign off before we've even left the site.
Yeah.
That'd be ideal.
Ideally, somebody like an estimator would be in the office in real time, connected to Billy, looking at all the things you're picking up on site. And then they would be getting on the phone and getting quick prices and then respond on Billy in real time back to you. In building businesses, would there be a scenario where there isn't somebody in the office? How would that look like if somebody isn't there in real time?
The smaller companies or even some of the medium companies wouldn't even have a back office that could accommodate any sort of thing like that. And a very common thing then is it comes back down to the data you're capturing in the field there and then with the customer to be able to try and address it when you're back in the office. So that's where Billy becomes very important to capture the details in that conversation. It also becomes a very good record when you're actually signing the change order that you can take the notes, you can take the photographs of that particular walkthrough, you can include the customer on that walkthrough, and then you can download that and we'll make that part of the change order contract. And I think the reality is, and this happened to me many times, where even if you did a great job of taking pretty good notes, you go home at night, you're tired, you have dinner, you spend time with your family, the kids go to bed, you're sitting up at 10 or 11 o'clock at night with your wife watching TV, trying to then process the information you captured that day. And then you realize, gee, I don't remember what that was about. So then you have to make a guess, and then straight away you're now introducing inefficiency and errors as well. So being able to capture that information on the spot is very important.
Yeah, and even better if the paperwork of the change order could be automated, right? So how, in your experience, how did you use another software to process the change order forms, or what was your workflow back then?
Back then, I was lucky. I was in a unique position. I also had a prior career as a software engineer, so I actually programmed some of my own custom software to do that. But I was the only person around who could do that. Everybody else struggled, and that's what gave me the competitive advantage.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, just quickly introduce David's background. So prior to becoming a home builder in Silicon Valley, where he built homes for 16 years, he was a software engineer, and then he became a tech sales representative in major technology companies. So he actually has a major in computer science and accounting from University of New South Wales, right? So your mixture of background, combining technology and construction, has always pushed you to do things in more efficient and innovative ways, especially in construction.
I was looking for this tool back 13 or 14 years ago. It was the biggest problem for me. My whole thing was, if I found a problem on site, I wanted to capture it and I wanted to deal with it there and then, because any problem that existed when I left the site would turn into twice as much effort that I'd need to deal with after I'd left the site.